The freezing response. You're walking alone at night when a shadow moves in your peripheral vision. Your body doesn't run, it doesn't fight, it stops completely. Your muscles lock into place, your breath catches in your throat, and for 3 seconds that feel like 30, you become a statue. This is the freezing response, and it's saved more lives throughout human history than courage ever has. When predators hunt by detecting movement, when violence erupts without warning, when your conscious mind hasn't yet processed the danger, this ancient circuit bypasses thought entirely. Your brainstem takes control before your frontal cortex even knows there's a problem. The freeze isn't cowardice, it's your nervous system buying time, forcing you into invisibility while your body floods with stress hormones and prepares for whatever comes next. Prey animals that froze survived to pass on their genes. The ones that ran immediately often died tired. You carry the survival strategy of 100,000 generations, and sometimes it activates in a parking garage or a dark hallway, leaving you angry at yourself for not reacting like an action hero. But action heroes aren't shaped by evolution. They're shaped by scripts. Your body knows something they don't. Sometimes the best move is no move at all. The tribe recognition circuit. You meet someone for the first time, and within 90 seconds, something in your chest either opens or closes. You don't decide this consciously. Your amygdala is scanning their face, their posture, their micro-expressions, cross-referencing them against every person you've ever known who helped you or hurt you. It's looking for tribe markers. Do they look like your people? Do they move like someone you can trust? The evaluation happens faster than thought, deeper than reason, and it's almost never about the individual standing in front of you. You're responding to patterns, to resemblances, to the ghost of every interaction that shaped your threat detection system. This circuit evolved when living outside your tribe meant death, when the wrong group would kill you for resources or territory, when your survival depended on instant recognition of who was safe and who wasn't. You still carry this system, and it fires every time you meet someone new, every time you enter a room, every time you scan a crowd. Sometimes it makes you warm to people who resemble someone who loved you. Sometimes it makes you cold to people who've done nothing wrong except trigger an ancient pattern. You feel it as intuition, as gut feeling, as just knowing, but you're not reading the person in front of you. You're reading the echo of everyone who came before them. The hoarding instinct. You keep things you don't need. Clothes you haven't worn in years, books you'll never read again, cables for devices you no longer own. There's a reason you can't throw them away, and it has nothing to do with sentiment. Your brain contains a scarcity protocol that evolved during ice ages and famines, during periods when humans survived or died based on what they managed to store before winter came. That instinct doesn't understand modern abundance. It doesn't recognize that you can replace almost anything within days. It only knows that resources were once rare enough to kill over, and the people who kept everything survived more often than the people who threw things away. You're not attached to the object itself. You're responding to a survival signal that says resources are precious, that you might need this someday, that letting go is dangerous. Some people feel this more intensely than others. Their ancestors survived harsher conditions, faced deeper scarcity, carried genes that made them pathologically careful. Now they live in houses filled with possessions they'll never use, responding to famines that ended 10,000 years ago. The instinct that saved them becomes the weight that buries them. The dominance display. Someone cuts you off in traffic and your heart rate spikes, your jaw clenches. Your hands grip the steering wheel until your knuckles pale. This response has nothing to do with the actual danger or inconvenience. You're responding to a status challenge, to what your limbic system interprets as a dominance display from another primate. For most of human history, letting someone take from you without response meant watching them take more, watching your status drop, watching others test you because you seemed weak. The people who responded to challenges maintained their position. The people who didn't found themselves at the bottom of every hierarchy, given less food, fewer mating opportunities, lower survival odds for their children. Your brain still treats social slights like physical threats, because for hundreds of thousands of years they were. That driver will never see you again. The interaction has no material consequence, but your amygdala is preparing you for a confrontation that would have mattered intensely in a tribal setting, when reputation was survival and every challenge required a response. Men feel this more acutely than women because male status in ancestral environments had steeper consequences. But everyone carries some version of this circuit, this need to push back when pushed, this inability to let slights pass without effort. You're not overreacting. You're responding appropriately to a world that no longer exists. The newborn recognition system. You see a baby and something in your chest softens involuntarily. Not because you want children, not because you find infants particularly interesting, but because your brain contains specialized circuits that respond to specific ratios. Large eyes relative to face size, round cheeks, small chins, awkward movements. These features trigger caregiving responses across cultures, across species, even in people who actively dislike children. The response isn't a choice, it's a hijacking. Evolution built this reaction into you because the babies who triggered it received more care and survived more often, and the adults who felt it invested more resources in their genetic future. Without this instinct, human infants would have died. They're born more helpless than almost any other mammal, unable to walk or feed themselves, completely dependent on adults who must sacrifice years of resources to keep them alive. The instinct is so powerful that it works across species. You feel protective toward puppies, kittens, anything with those proportions. Disney built an empire on this circuit. Every animated character with oversized eyes is exploiting the same system that kept your ancestors' children alive. You can recognize the manipulation and still feel the pull. That's how deep this wiring goes. Your rational mind knows you're looking at a cartoon. Your brainstem sees a baby that needs protection. The pursuit drive. You want things more when you're chasing them than when you have them. The new relationship that consumed your thoughts becomes comfortable and somehow less electric after a year. The job you fought for feels ordinary 6 months in. The possession you saved for sits unused in your closet. This isn't ingratitude or character failure. This is your dopamine system working exactly as evolution designed it. Dopamine doesn't spike when you have something. It spikes when you're moving toward getting it, when the reward is possible but not certain, when you're in pursuit. Our ancestors who felt the most motivation during the hunt, who experienced the strongest drive while tracking prey or searching for food, survived more often than those who lost interest once they'd eaten. The system works through anticipation, through wanting, through the gap between where you are and where you might be. Once you arrive, once you obtain, the dopamine crashes, and your brain immediately scans for the next thing to chase. This served humans well when resources were scarce and survival required constant seeking. Now it leaves you perpetually dissatisfied, always focused on what you don't have, unable to rest in what you've achieved. The instinct that kept your ancestors hungry enough to hunt when they could already eat makes you hungry in a world of abundance. You're not broken because you can't appreciate what you have. You're running on software designed for a different problem. The grooming compulsion. You pick at your skin, you pull at hangnails, you scratch at scabs that should be left alone. Your hands move to your face without permission, checking for imperfections, worrying at irregularities, trying to smooth everything into uniformity. This isn't vanity. This is the same instinct that made primates spend hours each day picking through each other's fur, removing parasites, cleaning wounds, maintaining the skin barrier that stood between them and infection. For most of human history, your skin was your first defense against a world trying to kill you through bacterial invasion, fungal infection, parasitic infestation. The people who obsessively maintained their skin survived more often than those who didn't. The people who regularly checked themselves and their tribe members for problems caught infections early, before they became deadly. You carry this instinct, but now it fires without real threats. There are no parasites to remove. The imperfection you're picking at isn't dangerous. But your fingers move anyway, scanning, checking, trying to smooth what doesn't need smoothing. Some people feel this more intensely, pulling hair until they're bald, picking skin until it bleeds, unable to stop even when they want to. Their grooming circuit is stuck in overdrive, responding to threats that vanished when we moved into houses and invented antibiotics. The instinct that protected them becomes the thing they need protection from. The territorial marking. You arrange your possessions in specific ways. You have a spot on the couch that's yours, a side of the bed, a parking space you prefer. When someone else takes your place, something in you bristles, even though you know it's irrational. This is territorial marking behavior, and every mammal does it. For most of human history, holding territory meant survival. The people who defended their space kept their resources. The people who didn't found themselves pushed to marginal lands where food was scarce and weather was harsh. Your ancestors who felt strongest about their territory, who experienced the most distress when boundaries were violated, passed on more genes than those who were flexible about space. Now you live in a world where territory is abstract, where your physical survival doesn't depend on holding ground. But your limbic system hasn't updated. It still treats your parking spot like hunting grounds, your desk at work like a resource cache that others might raid. You personalize spaces without thinking about it, leaving objects that signal occupation, arranging things in ways that announce presence. When someone moves your stuff, your stress response activates, not because anything valuable was taken, because a boundary was crossed, a territory was invaded, and some ancient part of you is preparing to defend what it thinks you need to survive. You feel petty for caring. But you're not petty. You're territorial. Like everything else that survived long enough to have descendants, the pattern-seeking obsession, you see faces in clouds, shapes in static, meaning in coincidence. Your brain is a pattern detection machine that never stops running, never stops looking for connections, never stops trying to predict what comes next based on what came before. This instinct kept your ancestors alive. The human who saw the pattern in which plants were poisonous survived. The one who noticed that predators attacked at dawn avoided becoming food. The one who tracked weather patterns through cloud formations knew when to seek shelter. Pattern recognition was survival, so evolution built you to see patterns everywhere, even where none exist. The cost of a false positive was small. You thought you saw something that wasn't there. The cost of a false negative was death. You missed the pattern that would have saved you. Your brain is calibrated to err on the side of seeing too much rather than too little. This is why you believe in luck, why you think things happen in threes, why you find significance in random events that align temporally but have no causal connection. Your pattern detection system is so sensitive that it fires constantly, finding meaning in chaos, seeing intention in accident, building narratives that connect unrelated events. You can know intellectually that confirmation bias exists, that your brain is designed to find what it's looking for and still feel certain that the patterns you see are real. That's not ignorance. That's the instinct that kept humans alive long enough to wonder whether instincts can be trusted. The revenge spiral. Someone wrongs you and you can't let it go. Days later, weeks later, you're still rehearsing what you should have said, planning responses to arguments that are already over, feeling the anger fresh every time you replay the memory. This isn't pettiness. This is your brain's justice system, evolved to maintain cooperation in small groups where reputation was everything, and wrongs left unanswered invited more wrongs. In ancestral environments, letting someone exploit you without consequence meant watching them do it again, watching others learn they could do it too, watching your status crumble until you had nothing. The people who remembered who wronged them and responded appropriately maintained their position. The ones who forgave too easily ended up at the bottom, exploited by everyone because exploitation carried no cost. Your brain still treats social violations like threats to survival because, for most of human history, they were. It replays the memory obsessively, not to torture you, but to prepare you for the next encounter, to make sure you don't get caught off guard again, to maintain the emotional fuel needed to enforce boundaries. Some people feel this more intensely than others. They carry grudges for decades, unable to release anger even when holding it hurts them more than the original wrong did. Their revenge circuit is stuck on, responding to violations that no longer matter in groups too large for reputation to function the way it once did. The instinct that protected them becomes the prison they can't escape. You're not weak for struggling to forgive. You're responding to software designed for a world where forgiveness was dangerous and memory was survival.